Alrighty, guys, let's start going over our questions. Your first question was, the author organizes paragraphs 1 through 3 by, and so what we need to do first, if you didn't, is kind of like think about your most important part of your question. And you need to realize that paragraphs 1 through 3 is all that we're going to look at. So we need to go back in our passage and look at paragraphs 1 through 3. So our first paragraph is talking about Katie Payne and Roger Payne. This is a husband and wife team, and they're talking about their research with humpback whales. And then you see your second paragraph, it's starting to talk about Katie Payne, because the first paragraph is kind of talk about, but Katie decided that she wanted to start a project of her own. Katie Payne knew that elephants, like whales, live in family groups and have complex behavior, so she thought she might have to study them. So this is her kind of introducing that she wants to study elephants. Then on the third paragraph, this is talking about kind of her realization of how they're going to communicate. So this is kind of like their intro. This one's talking about Katie. And we'll just put a big E for elephants. And then this is her, kind of figuring out elephants communicating. Okay. So it's pretty much introducing everything, and it's showing how Katie went from studying whales with her husband to studying elephants. So let's look back at our answer choices. A, describing how Katie Payne became interested in elephant communication. Well, if I look back, I see that it started off with whales, but then it came to elephants. So that one can be a correct answer. B, comparing humpback whales in Argentina to elephants in the United States. Well, that's not really it. She's not really comparing anything. She's just wanting to study elephants. C, explaining why Katie Payne needed her own research project on animals. That was really just like paragraph 1, the last sentence. That wasn't talking about all 3 paragraphs, so I wouldn't agree with answer choice C. Listing the various kinds of unusual noises made by elephants in the zoo. I mean, it talked about that in paragraph 2, but that's not all that paragraphs 1 through 3 talked about. So your correct answer must be A. If you're ready to move on, you can keep playing it, or if you need to pause for answer choice number 2, you may stop. Okay, number 2, this author probably wrote this selection too. So we talked about yesterday how this is expository text. This is informational text. So anytime we talk about that, and I know we haven't talked about this too much this year, but we got pretty much 4 reasons why an author writes something. It's either to inform, express, entertain, or persuade. Okay. We have with inform, you're getting information. You're learning something new. Express, those are like your love songs, like your Ed Sheeran's or different things. That's, somebody expressing their feelings. Entertaining, it doesn't always have to be funny, but it usually is. It makes you smile. It, keeps your mind going. It makes you want to watch something more. Scary movies can be entertaining as well. Like I said, it doesn't have to be funny, but you have to keep wanting more with it. And persuading, they're trying to make you do something. So before I even kind of think about this kind of stuff, I can kind of look at these for author's purposes, because that's what it's asking us to do. Author probably wrote this selection too. That's just another way of saying, what's the author's purpose? So I can already cross out express, because this isn't the author expressing how much she loves elephants and how cool elephants are. She's not really trying to persuade me to do anything either. She's not saying that you need to save elephants. So I'm kind of stuck in between entertain and inform, just because this is really cool information. You guys filled out your fact sheets and told me all kinds of cool things about elephants. But I wouldn't know about these things if I wasn't being informed about these facts. So let's kind of take a look at our answer choices. F, share information about an interesting scientific discovery. Wow, that kind of goes with both entertain and inform. So I actually really like the answer because it's sharing information about an interesting scientific discovery. So I really like that answer choice because it kind of hits what I said about both of them. Entertain the reader with some fun facts about wild animals. While I agree it's entertaining, it's not really about wild animals. It's really just about elephants. So I'm not thinking G could be our answer. Convince students to study animal communication in depth. Like I said, it's not trying to persuade me to do anything, so I can't choose convince. J, teach readers the importance of finding meaningful work. That might be the theme, but that's really not what they're doing. They're not teaching readers about the importance of finding meaningful work. It didn't talk about in depth like why Katie Payne really wanted this to do this and everything. It talked more about elephants. So your correct answer is F. You can go ahead and pause until you guys are ready to view question number 3. Question 3. In paragraph 3, which word helps the reader understand what vibrations means? So it's talking about the word, not the meaning, but the word. Think about your background knowledge. A lot of you guys probably have your phones in your backpacks on vibrate. Okay? We know that when it starts going off, it's going to start shaking. So I want to look back at paragraph 3 to see if there's anything that would kind of match shaking. Okay? On the plane home from Oregon to New York, the vibration of the airplane reminded her of the way the air had sometimes felt near the elephants. She'd felt the same thing as a child listening to the pipe organ in church. The organist played lower and lower notes until her ears could not hear the notes clearly, but made her body feel the shuddering vibrations. Ooh, now there's even a context clue before it. Perhaps the elephants were making hidden sounds too, she thought. Maybe they were making infrasound. So I see the word vibration here, and it's talking about the airplane. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have, ridden on an airplane, but it kind of shakes a little bit. You kind of hear the humming of it. And then on the third to last sentence, it was talking about the pipe organ, and her body could feel the shuddering vibration. So I wonder if shuddering is going to be one of our answer choices. A, air. Air is not showing me that there's going to be any kind of shaking. So air is not going to be a correct answer. Shuddering. Kind of like when there's a cool breeze, probably while most of you guys were walking to school this morning, you felt kind of like that shuddering feeling. So that's kind of like shaking. So I would agree with that. Hidden, I don't think so because it's not shaking. It's hidden. You can't see it. You can't feel it. Sounds is close, but not quite. Because sounds, it's making me think of something that I hear with my ear instead of something that I can feel. So sounds is not going to be my correct answer. My correct answer is going to be B. You may pause until you are ready to move to question 4. Alrighty, Roo. Question number 4. Look at the chart below. Which detail belongs in the box? A lot of times, guys, this is going to be about, if you're thinking main idea, you are absolutely correct. Okay? Elephant herds are able to communicate with other herds. This is the main idea, which means these are your supporting details. Okay? They listen for other low calls. So that's one thing that helps us come up with an elephant herds communicate. They have large eardrums to pick up faint sounds. So this also talks about how they're able to communicate. So this detail should be about them communicating. So I'm thinking whenever we look at this, I need to think about what this whole page was about. And like we were keep on saying, it's about them communicating. So all of these answer choices need to have something about communicating. If they don't, it can't be the right answer. Elephants make infrasonic sounds. Now, if you look back at paragraphs 3 through 8, I got it. Okay, paragraphs 3 through 8, it starts talking about those sounds. Paragraph 3, maybe it's infrasound. Then it just keeps going, talking about what infrasounds are, about whales talking about it, the idea of like elephants having it, and then what they did to kind of figure out what infrasounds were with elephants. So this one to me is going to be a good possibility. Elephants are sometimes kept in zoos. This is just telling me about them living. This doesn't tell me about them communicating. So G is not going to be my correct answer. Elephants live in family groups. Again, this is telling me about where they're living, not about communication. Elephants are found mostly in Africa. Unfortunately, again, that's not talking about them communicating. That's again talking about where they're living. So F is your correct answer. You may pause until you're ready to move on to question number 5. Question 5. What resource would you use to check the facts in paragraph 8? This is a question we haven't really talked about, but I'm thinking that you guys would probably be able to figure this out. Okay, first off, we need to figure out what was being said in paragraph 8. So looking back, when the team returned home from a month of recording elephant sounds and weren't sure they'd be able to find an infrasound, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is talking about their, it's talking about how they're finding infrasound and basically what they did with what they had from recording. Okay, so looking back, it has to be something about them recording and about the infrasound, about their findings. So, the latest articles on elephant infrasound, I think that would be very helpful because that's what it's talking about. It was talking about them taking back their data from their experiment and figuring it out. So we can kind of see if that's what people would do when they're talking about infrasound. A biographical article on Christopher Clark. Well, though it talks about Christopher Clark, he's talking about whale research. So really, he's not going to be able to help us too much about elephants. A recent book about whales and dolphins. Again, a recent book about whales and dolphins isn't going to be able to help us out. A website for people who want to protect elephants. We're not wanting to protect elephants. I mean, yes, you might have that as a hidden agenda, but we're looking for the facts in paragraph 8. And for a website to figure out how to protect elephants is not going to be our correct answer. So your correct answer is A. You may pause until you're ready to move on to question number 6. Okay. Look at the glossary entry below. Infrasound, N, which stands for noun, which means person, place, thing, or idea. Sound like waves with a frequency below 20 hertz. Which sentence uses infrasound correctly? Well, infrasound was used a lot in our text, and actually I remember specifically in paragraph 4, the first sentence said infrasound is any sound with the frequency below 20 hertz. So that was just like what we just read. So this question is not asking what it means. We got that up here. We're asking which word uses it correctly. So we really don't need too much text evidence. We can kind of look back at our passage whenever it uses infrasound, and we can kind of see if it matches up with our idea. The mother elephant taught its baby to infrasound. Well, these are sound like waves. So you can't teach a baby elephant to make sound like waves. You can teach them how to communicate, but this is the form in which they are communicating. So F is not the right answer. G, elephants infrasound to other elephant herds. Elephants sound like waves with a frequency below 20 hertz. It just doesn't make sense. This infrasound is talking about sound waves. This isn't another word for communication. It is how they communicate, but this isn't another word for communication.
Teacher, pardon this interruption. Can I have pre-K to second grade to please get out to the playground quickly?
Awkward. Okay. Well, I'm not going to start my video over, so sorry, guys. Some animals communicate through infrasound. Yes, this makes sense because it's talking about communicate and how they communicate. So I'm thinking that H is going to be the correct answer. The infrasound animals are interesting to study. Again, this is kind of talking about a specific type of animal, and it's not really how it should fit. The infrasound animals are easy to study. It could say the animals that communicate through infrasound are interesting to study, but that's not the correct usage of it. Your correct usage is going to be G. You may pause until you're ready for question 7. Alrighty, question 7. How does the inclusion of the examples of low notes of pipe organs and the movement of an airplane help the reader better understand this article? I remember when I was even proving my answer on this video that we talked about these examples, and it was in paragraph 3. Remember, Katie Payne was on the airplane. The vibration of the airplane reminded her of the way the air sometimes felt near the elephant. She felt the same thing as a child listening to the pipe organ in church. So this is kind of talking about, like, things that are reminding her. And the organist played lower and lower notes until her ears could not hear the notes clearly, but her body could feel the shuddering vibrations. Perhaps the elephants were making hidden sounds too, she thought. Maybe they were making infrasound. So this is her kind of connecting the ideas that, hey, these are kind of similar to what the elephants were doing. So let's look at our answer choices. A, each has been the subject of study by scientist Katie Payne. Not a subject of study. These were things that she just kind of learned or heard, excuse me. Each can only be detected when recorded at an extremely low speed. No, because she wasn't slow-moing anything. She could hear the pipe organ fine. She could hear the vibrations just fine. So not only be detected at extremely low speed. Each uses a range of sound that can only be heard when played back on a tape recorder. Again, this is something she heard on her normal ears. This wasn't something that she just heard by using special equipment. Each produces vibrations that can be felt rather than heard clearly by human ears. This would be correct. It keeps using the word vibrations. And I kind of messed up when I was explaining the other ones earlier. She didn't have to use special equipment for these things. She could feel/hear them without any special equipment. But it's mostly the vibrations that she felt/heard. So D would be your correct answer. You may go ahead and pause until you're ready for question 8. What important information appears in the section Cracking the Code? So I'm going to return back to my text where it talks about cracking the code. So all it's talking about is during 16 years of discovery, Payne has continued studying the animal calls. Oops, wrong thing. Okay, so it's talking about her continuing her research, continuing how elephants communicate, and how pretty much she would get that information. So it's not her researching anymore, it's her kind of figuring out what's being said or what's happening. How spectrographs work? That was a tiny detail within our 4 paragraphs. So that's not going to be what the whole section is about. How cows and elephant noises are alike? Again, this is a tiny section. This isn't something that the whole thing was about. How Christopher Clark studied whale sounds? If you think about it, this was actually in paragraph 8. This was not in paragraphs 9 through 12. How Payne learned to interpret elephant sounds. Yes. If you look back on your paragraphs, this is talking about her keeping on looking at her information that she gathered as she listens to videos, as she listens and hears all of these different sounds, she figures out how the elephants are able to communicate. So your answer is J. When you're ready to move on, you may play the video for your last question. The writer's invitation to the scientific conference believes that, so if I look back, I see my invitation. It's at the very bottom of our passage. And it's talking about conference directors are usually accepting research papers on a wide variety of topics, areas of interest. It tells me what they're doing it about. If you work on elephant research, you can join the conference. So this is talking about all about elephants. And if you have any kind of research that's good for elephants, then come to this conference and you can share it. So let's see if we got many people are studying the problems of elephants. While that is true, that's not why they're making this invitation. That's not why they want you to read this invitation. It is too late to solve the problems of elephants in the wild. Yes, it is 2017. Yes, this invitation was written in 2013, but too late is not why this invitation was written. It's talking about other information that you can get because of research. Sharing information about elephants will help these animals. I agree with that. That kind of tells me that, we're going to do what we can to save elephants. We already have enough information about elephants. No, we can never have enough information. We don't know elephants. We can't think like elephants. We can act like an elephant. We can study them, but we will never fully understand them. So we will never have enough information on elephants. And it even says, if you're conducting any elephant research, you need to share this with us so that way we can collaborate. We can, work together on something. So your correct answer is C. Well, I hope you did pretty well on this assignment. Go ahead and make sure your names are on your text and on your answer sheet, and you may turn these in as soon as your substitute says that's okay. Thanks so much, guys, and good job.